Darrell, you got a lecture coming up this week, and it has a very intriguing title, Jazz as an Ecology. Now, that is a very, very tasty title because it's really interesting, but we don't know what it is. Is it really a chapter in your new book?
Well, not exactly. It started as a paper, actually. I was working in a committee here at Portland State on music and sustainability. And so I had been in conversation with this wonderful ethnomusicologist named Jeff Todd Titan at Brown University. And he came out here and gave a lecture about this. He has a wonderful blog called Sustainable Music. And so all these kind of ideas about the future of music, of how, how we preserve it, how music affects culture, sustainability, all that. And I had this idea. One of the things that he talks about is cultural ecology. He talks about, if you think about sustainability, not from an economic perspective, but from an ecological perspective, then how do you sort of fit the arts into that? And so I started thinking about jazz. I started thinking about, well, what makes a healthy jazz scene? People talk about that all the time. Well, if you were to think about the metaphor of an ecology, of a sustainable area, then how would what are the components of a jazz community or jazz scene, and how do they parallel that? So for instance, in a thriving ecology, you have old growth forest, right? You've got these huge trees. Well, what would that be in terms of the jazz community? Well, it would be the elders of the community, the ones that sort of keep the wisdom, that are sort of the robust trees that sort of maintain that. So and then what are the components of the environment, of the soil? They say in providing for an ecology, it's like feed the soil, not the plant. Well, what kind of soil do you really need? What kind of components do you need? Nutrients do you really need to make a jazz scene kind of thrive? So I just thought more and more I kept on thinking about this analogy and seeing how far we could extend it, and I just thought it would be a useful way of thinking of it, of how to make a community thrive.
It is. What is your part in the ecology?
That's a good question.
You're not an elder yet.
No, I'm not.
You get it.
But I think that so one of the things I would think about is that the musicians who are really out and about in the community, just disseminating their music. So it's like that's, I don't know. It's like it's like I feel like as an educator, I'm a pretty tall tree. I'm sheltering and nurturing. I'm sort of throwing off seeds and sort of spreading that sort of wisdom throughout the community. I'm out doing work, and so that inspires people. So I don't know. I think it's there's all these different kind of things you can think about it. You could think of the working musician as like a lake or as a spring, and their creativity is sort of what feeds, one of the things that feeds the scene and keeps it keeps it going.
And where does the audience fit in?
Well, that's a good question. I think that because when you think about it, a sustainable ecology, what are you talking? How big are you talking about? Is it is a vacant lot, is a garden, is that a sustainable entirety? A vacant lot, does it have to be the size of a city block, a whole city, a state, a region? So depending on how you look at that metaphor, you can sort of determine, well, what's needed to make something thrive. And then what does thriving mean? Does it mean that it's always growing? Does it mean it's robust enough to withstand a crisis? Is that what health means? So I think the audience is, it's like everything else that's in the environment that sort of spreads it. It's like what's around it. It's and I think it also could be the sort of various things that interact in an environment or in an ecology that pass through, that take a little bit with them. It's like if you were a bird that picks up seeds and then sort of spreads those seeds somewhere else. So maybe the audience is that.
Well, if one of those trees falls in the forest and there's no audience, is there still music?
Is there still music? Good, good question.
That was rhetorical, actually. Well, that's interesting. How long a talk is this going to be?
It's going to be about an hour with some time for questions, and so it's
with no instrument.
I have an instrument actually, so I'm going to play a little bit. It's not. I wanted to have the opportunity to play, and I think mostly because I think people don't necessarily get people thinking about the music, thinking about how it's related and connected to the music that they know or that they love. And so I just thought, if you got a chance to play, you should always do that.
Well, that sounds interesting. That sounds very interesting. It should be fun for you, actually, I think.
I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. Are you going off the script or notes, or are you going to improvise?
I am to some extent. There was when I started, it started as a bunch of ideas, and then I actually sort of drafted into a paper that I thought I might publish at some point. And when I sort of started working on the lecture, I didn't realize how much detail I'd gone into in the paper. So I haven't decided whether I'm going to present that paper and kind of annotate it with comments, or if I'm going to just use that as an outline and sort of play a solo based.
Sounds like a book to me.
I don't know if it's fully a book, but it's definitely a good paper.
Well, it certainly has the seeds of a book.
Yeah.
So musically speaking, what projects are you working on that you're looking forward to?
Well, there is only one thing on my radar other than this lecture, and that is on July 6th and 7th. I'm premiering this piece that I've been working on for a year. I got a grant from Chamber Music America to create a new jazz work, and so I'm premiering that at Chamber Music Northwest on July 6th with Brian Blade and Joe Locke and Steve Wilson and Clark Summers and Marilyn Keller and Hamlin Chaffetz. I wrote this 40-minute suite for 9 musicians or 8 musicians and vocalists, and so that's writing that, composing that, finishing it, copying it, and practicing it, getting ready to rehearse it and perform it. That's basically the only thing I can think about until it's over.
Is there improvisation in this piece, or is it?
There is. It's it sort of combines composition and improvisation, and the piece is called "The Territory," and it's sort of based on this exploration of the connection between art and place, and so all the different movements sort of are based around themes of either geography or topography or cultural stories of Oregon. So that's what it is.
Well, that's something to really look forward to. Any plans for going back to Europe or Russia? Any of that?
Well, that's sort of after too. Yeah. Well, I'd love to go back to Khabarovsk, and I'd like to think we owe them a visit here. So I'm hoping we can arrange to get the Russians to come back.
What will they do here?
Well, perform. I'd love to get students from there, as we brought students from here over there, so that they could sort of experience the musical culture and share the musical culture, their musical culture too. I mean, they have this folk orchestra over there that was just unbelievable. And if I suddenly came into $500,000, I would bring them over here to the country for a tour. I mean, that's one of the things I would do, because they're just such incredible, rich musical tradition that they have.
Well, you're in here in your office on a Saturday afternoon, so I'm going to let you get back to work.
All right.
Thanks a lot.
All right. Take care.